Hello, UAB Urology, and welcome to November 24th, Monday Momentum. It's one of my favorite weeks of the whole year. The Thanksgiving week holiday is really one of my favorites. The opportunity to be spending time with family and friends, hopefully over good meals and breaking bread. It's just one of the best times of the year in my mind. So look forward to that. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving this week. We've got a couple of things to celebrate from last week. First of all, I want to call out that Dr. John Knight was conferred officially the Dina Simos and John Burns Endowed Professorship. So this professorship was set aside. It was funded by Dr. Dina Simos, who was a former chair, and Dr. John Burns, who was a longtime faculty member here at UAB Urology, both specialists in stones, to dedicate towards supporting the career of somebody who was supporting and dedicating their lives to the science of stones. And we're so fortunate to have Dr. John Knight here, who received that professorship officially last week at a reception. So congratulations, Dr. Knight, and thank you so much for Dina Simos and to Dr. Burns for really investing in and engaging in the future of UAB urology in such an important way. The other thing I'll draw people's highlights and attention to is Valencia Jones, one of our academic staff who works in FOT, had a very nice article written about her as a staff highlight. So the website link is in the email. Take a look at it, click on it. It's some very nice details and gives you a little insight into who Valencia is and a wonderful member of our team. What else is going on here? Those are probably the biggest things. Last week also, we've had a couple of folks in Latin America making a big splash. Dr. Joel Funk, one of our faculty, was down at the SMU, which is the Mexican Urologic Meeting. They're moderating on HOLEP and giving some lectures on HOLEP. Our own Dr. Joe Crivelli, who's one of our faculty in Stones, has been down in Brazil on an AUA exchange program. He comes back next week, and they've been representing us internationally and abroad and bringing our UAB brand out beyond the borders of the United States, which is awesome. So for the middle segment today, I'll focus in on a couple of things that highlight from Valencia's interview, as well as Dr. Knight's conferral of the professorship. And what I'll relay to you is there's one of the things that Valencia says in her interview, which I really love. She talks about how the question they ask is, what advice would you give to somebody who is new to the department or in the department? And her comment says, stay organized, communicate clearly, be proactive, build strong relationships, and anticipate needs, and that will ensure your success. And I think that's such great advice, applicable to everybody and anybody. And that type of approach to building relationships, I think, can really make you succeed at work, in your career. As we all know, your ability to influence others and to be effective in your work, a lot of it has to do with relationships. If a person really likes you, or if they think good thoughts in their head when they think about your name or picture your face in their minds, you're probably more likely to get to a yes when you engage in a conversation with them or when you ask for something or look to try to build something together. As opposed to, if every time they think about you, they have these dark clouds come over their head, or they don't really think about you in a happy way, well, maybe it'd be hard to get to a yes on things. So I think building those relationships is incredibly important. And I'll tie together that interview and that great advice from Valencia with last week's celebration for John Knight's professorship in a different way. So I'll introduce a concept to you if you haven't heard about it, called the Ben Franklin effect. And I actually heard about this from my wife Judith originally. And what the concept here is, it's based on an anecdote about Ben Franklin, where he had a political opponent, and they were, of course, always clashing. And he turned that relationship around by asking them for a favor, to borrow a very rare book. And that political opponent lent in the book. And that turned into a relationship that was actually positive over time. So this concept has now become what's called the Ben Franklin effect. The idea here being that if you ask a person for a favor, or if you perform a favor for somebody else, it actually creates and generates positive feelings. So surprisingly, when you ask somebody to engage in something with you, it helps to build a relationship. So the technical mumbo jumbo behind that is this idea of cognitive dissonance. So if you imagine, you had Ben Franklin, his political opponent, and these two people don't like each other very much, but then Ben Franklin says, well, can I borrow your book, your very rare, precious book? And the other person says, sure, I'll give you the book. Well, all of a sudden you have a person and two people who are supposedly not to like each other, but one person does something that actually helps the other person out. And they have this thing called cognitive dissonance, because I'm not supposed to like you, but I did something nice for you. Therefore, I must like you. And that changes the relationship. And now in modern day, where it comes into play is, if you have a person that you're thinking about asking for something from a favor or engaging in a relationship or trying to influence them to get to a positive, and you're trying to build that relationship, interestingly, if you ask them to engage in small things like favors or small positive things, it will help to shape their thinking of you to lead to a point where in the future you might be able to build a relationship that leads to something positive where you might be able to influence them to a yes. So that's kind of the concept that can be used in modern day. And the reason I bring it up in these two contexts is because I think that when Valencia has that great advice, say, communicate proactively and engage in relationships and anticipate needs, those are kind of one version of what many might be able to think about as that Ben Franklin effect. If you can think ahead, if you can be excellent, if you can try to anticipate needs and you can build relationships, that might make you more effective in work. And when we apply that concept to things like philanthropy and building engagements with our partners in the community to get them engaged in the work that we do, a lot of that is really relationship building. A lot of people think about fundraising or philanthropy as having to go out there and ask people for money, but it's really not about fundraising. I think it's about friend raising. It's really about building relationships and getting people engaged in the work that you do so that they want to help you because people want to help you. You just need to give them a reason. So by building those relationships up over time, they impact your ability to be effective at work. They impact your ability to influence others in a positive way, and they impact our ability to have engagement and partnership with people around us in our communities. So the call to action for this week is think about how you can apply that concept to your life and maybe utilize it to build a relationship around you. Is there a favor that you might feel a little bit uncomfortable asking about normally, but if you reframe it in this way, listen, if I ask for that favor, maybe I'm building that relationship. Is that an opportunity for you to practice that in your daily life? Maybe if you ask for a small favor, it might help you to engage with a person in a different way, and that might lead to a different type of relationship in the future in a positive way. So with that, I leave that food for thought for you, and I hope everybody has a great week, a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. I hope you eat lots of great food, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.